Hello everyone! Last week we covered the story of Baine's father Cairne, ending it with the betrayal of Magatha Grimtotem. She saw the Mak'gora as the perfect opportunity for her plans, poison Gorhal and saw her enemy fall. After which, her people quickly moved in to seize the Tauren holdings and end Baine's life. But not all were down with what the leader was doing. Stormsong of the Grimtotem, he did not always agree with Cairne's choices, but he knew that the old bull deserved a better fate. What Magatha was doing was not right, so he decided to not lead their assault. Instead, he warned Baine of what was to come. This saved his life, gave him a chance to fight another day, but at that point, they weren't exactly sure on who they could trust. Magatha had taken over the city. Who knew if Garrosh was innocent or with her on all of this? Undercity had orcish patrols, the Blood Elves were too far away, and while the Dark Spears, they would probably help the Tauren, there were not too many of them. To whom could the Tauren turn for aid?
Shh, I'm trying to think here.
They decided to turn to an honorable enemy over a dishonorable friend. Lady Jaina Proudmoore was trusted by Thrall, and now Baine would do the same. Meanwhile, the Alliance was dealing with some inner turmoil as well. We have Magni Bronzebeard invoking an ancient Titan ritual to figure out what was going on with the world. Instead of just communicating with it, he actually became one with the land. He was turned into a crystal, which was the perfect opportunity for his daughter Moira to return and claim the city of Ironforge. At the time, Prince Anduin Ryn was visiting the dwarves, became her captive, but she didn't know that he possessed the Hearthstone given to him by Jaina. With it, he could return to Theramore anytime he liked, right into the meeting between Baine and Jaina.
Welcome to Theramore.
At the time, these three characters were very much alike. Baine and Anduin both growing up to become the rulers of their people. His father taught him well, by example and by sharing wisdom. For example, when the Emerald Nightmare engulfed Azeroth and Malfurion Stormrage called upon the world to help him fight against it, leadership of the troops was given to Varian Ryn. As you might imagine, members of the Horde weren't too happy about that, but Baine, he was wise enough to see that the nightmare, that it threatened them all. He stood with Varian, regardless of their faction, setting an example for others, and ultimately helping Malfurion defeating the nightmare. Peaceful spirits in a world divided by conflict. That's not to say that rage didn't hold Baine's heart now. If he would listen to his emotions, he would claim vengeance for what was done to him, root out the Grimtotems that dared to attack, but his heart was not being wise. His father had once told him that destruction is easy, but creating something that lasts, that is the challenge. He would not dishonor his father's memory by going down a path of vengeance, so instead he set on reclaiming Thunderbluff and taking care of Magatha. Before he left Theramore, Anduin presented him with a gift, Fearbreaker, a family heirloom of the Bronzebeard clan, which was given to him by Magni Bronzebeard. This was a way of showing that Anduin had faith in the Tauren, had faith in the path that Baine had decided to go on, that this was right, even if Baine or those around him had their doubts. Miss Proudmoore also had faith and decided to support Baine financially with her own funds. The Goblin Gaslow, he provided the bombs and the zeppelins, he even refused part of the gold that they offered him as he supported their cause. Cairne was an honorable Tauren, known and liked by many. Meanwhile, Magatha, she was foolish enough to believe that Garrosh would actually go along with her plans, but the truth hit her heart when her request for aid was denied. The war chief wished her a slow and painful death. She had robbed him of a fair fight. The cry of traitor will dog his steps until her head is on a spike. So no, I will not be sending you any true-hearted orcs to fight alongside your treacherous, belly-crawling tribe. Your victory or defeat is in the hands of your Earth Mother now. Either way, I look forward to hearing of your demise. You're on your own, Magatha, as friendless and disliked as you have ever been. Perhaps more. Enjoy your loneliness. And alone she stood, but not for very long. Baine and his allies, they were able to reclaim Thunderbluff. Fearbreaker smashed into the old crone's side, and she yielded before Baine had the pleasure of delivering the death blow. She and those that remained at her side, they were exiled, while others, they had the opportunity to swear their loyalty to Baine, and they were allowed to stay under the leadership of Stormsong. Some of the Grimtotems that remained loyal to Magatha, they would still cause trouble for the Tauren, like Orno Grimtotem trying to invade Mak'gora, but Magatha herself, she would actually turn into an ally in the future, but that's a different story. Now you might expect that Baine would challenge Garrosh to a Mak'gora, finish what his father started, but that would not come to pass. When Cairne decided to challenge Garrosh, it was to heal the Horde. If Baine would do it now, it would be to tear the Horde apart. No matter the trickery involved, the outcome of the Mak'gora had been settled, and to redo it just because he didn't like the outcome, that would be dishonorable. He was not going to waste his time on revenge, when his energy was much better spent towards rebuilding what was destroyed by Magatha. "Then I offer you the full protection and support of the Horde, Baine Bloodhoof," Garrosh said. "And in return for that protection and support, I offer the loyalty of the Tauren people." Baine said the word stiffly, but sincerely. Garrosh knew he could trust the Tauren's word. He extended a hand. Baine took it in his three-fingered one, enveloping Garrosh's completely.
"For the Horde,"
Baine said quietly, although his voice trembled with emotion.
"For the Horde!"
Sadly, the trials of Baine had only just begun. With Garrosh as the war chief, his loyalty to the Horde was tested time and time again until it reached a breaking point. Where once Garrosh was more cautious due to his role in the murder of his father, the bravado and bluster, it quickly took over again. He was not a thrall or Goel as the world would come to know him. He was Garrosh, and he did not believe in begging or pleading. The Horde was mighty, should take and conquer whatever they needed. Garrosh surrounded himself with those that had a similar vision, whereas voices that spoke out against him, they were silenced. Eventually, he set his eyes on taking Theramore, which was a plan that brought inner conflict to Baine. His people had not been untouched by the recent changes of the Cataclysm, the Alliance expanding from Northwatch Hold under false information that the Tauren were planning an attack. They'd raised Camp Tarajo. Many Tauren had died in battle. Others fled. In response to the aggression, Baine did what he felt was best to keep his people safe. The road to Mak'gora had once been open. Now, what had been dubbed the Great Gate, it shut out any possibility of a massive alliance incursion. Most Tauren were content with the erection of the gate and did not burn for revenge, whereas others were still aching from the attack. He could not condemn these people. Baine did not rule with a tight grasp. The Tauren, they followed him willingly and with love. Perhaps mostly out of respect for his father, but with openness in their hearts nonetheless. Those who disagreed with Baine's decision, like many of the Grimtotems or the Tauren who chose to strike back at the Alliance, they were expelled from Thunderbluff, but otherwise suffered no repercussions. On the other hand, it wasn't too long ago when the aid of Theramore and Lady Jaina Proudmoore, that saved this city. She had worked tirelessly for peace over the years. Her diplomatic efforts and her decision to work with Thrall, it had saved countless of lives. To storm a realm with no provocation, it does not give honor to the Horde, and it would be a foolish plan. While they were discussing this, some agreed that attacking Theramore was not the right way to go. Some disagreed, but for Garrosh, it didn't matter. He had already made up his mind, and Baine, he could not and would not forsake his honor and duty to the Horde. So it was that he decided to send one of his best messengers, Petter Stormhoof, to warn Jaina Proudmoore. Warn her that the Horde was coming. She would not stand a chance with the number she had now, and he would not want her to be caught unawares. He also had Perif return Fearbreaker, a weapon that he had used to save Garrosh from a massive amount of Quillbore, as he felt like it was no longer his to keep. Jaina nodded, though quick tears stung her eyes. She had hoped that that night would be the beginning of healing, of understanding, but it was not meant to be. Baine was telling her, in his typically gentle but firm fashion, that their friendship only went so far. He was not, and would never become, a member of the Alliance. He would stand and fight with the Horde. She understood, but none of them could have foreseen the lengths that Garrosh was willing to go. Dark shamanism, forcing the elements to obey in the wake of the Cataclysm, they were used to bring down Northwatch Hold. Baine's warning did indeed give Jaina the time to prepare, to gather some of the most powerful forces that the Alliance had to offer. Even the Kiddentor decided to help out, but the war chief himself also gave her time. He forced his troops to wait, just wait without explanation, to the frustration of the other leaders. But they did not know of his true plans. When the time was right, Garrosh had the Horde attack. An attack that was actually repelled by Theramore. They thought that they had won the day, but it was all part of the plan. The focusing iris, stolen from the Blue Dragonflight and turned to a mana bomb. It was dropped on her city.
We're gonna turn this place into a sinkhole!
Jaina only survived because Ronin pushed her through a portal. The others were not so lucky. Baine was a warrior. His eyes had seen almost more than he could bear of the horrors of war. He had beheld towns and forts, and even his own city of Thunderbluff ablaze. He had witnessed battles of magic as well as those of blade and fire and fist, and knew that spells killed as surely and as brutally as steel. His voice had shouted orders to attack, and his two hands had taken lives, but this, the mana bomb, so thoughtfully provided by the Blood Elves, who stood cheering with other Horde members, who somehow felt that what Garrosh had wrought was a good thing, had exploded over an entire city, and had not just harmed its citizens and buildings, but had crushed them utterly. Baine had watched both friend and foe perish from arcane magic attacks far too often to feel anything but fury at what he beheld. The people caught in the blast had been blown apart inside, as magic distorted and reformed them down to the last drop of blood. The buildings too were remade from the inside. So great had the blast been that Baine knew that every creature, every blade of grass, every handful of soil was now rendered dead, and worse than dead, and the awful magic would linger. Baine did not deal with magic. He did not know how long the eerie, violet glow that marked Garrus's calculated brutality would pulsate around the city of the slain, but Theramore would not be livable for a very long time. Tears ran down his muzzle, and he made no effort to wipe them away. He stood surrounded by throngs of cheering horde, but as he looked around, he saw, illuminated by the ghostly arcane glow, faces that were his own expression of shock and revulsion. What had happened to the war chief who had once said,
Honor, Cromgar. No matter how dire the battle, never forsake it.
The tactics used did not sit well with Baine and some of the other members of the Horde, while others cheered on for their war chief. Jaina would return to Theramore. There she claimed the focusing Iris with the plan of flooding Orgrimmar, but ultimately she decided to use it against Garrus's forces instead. With the aid of Varian and the Alliance forces, the Horde was defeated. But War Chief Garrus, he was far from done. In his mind, he was simply thinking too small. It was no longer just about taking over Kalimdor. They had to crush the Alliance utterly, wiping their filth off the face of the world. More ships, more weapons, more elementals and beasts and demons obeying their commands. But victory will be ours only if our plans are sound, our wills focused, our hearts strong and true. Garrus Hellscream, said Baine calmly. I ride now for Mak'gora with my braves. There are far fewer of them than when I rode out to answer the call of the war chief of the Horde. My loyalty to the Horde is deep, and you cannot gainsay me on that. But know this, I fight for the true Horde, not one that utilizes methods both unnecessary and shameful. There must never be another Theramore, not if you wish the aid of Baine Bloodhoof. Garrus stared at Baine with narrowed eyes and a slight smirk that Baine could not interpret it. Duly noted, he said. As he gathered up the reins of his Kodo, Baine glanced at VOl'jin. The troll looked at him sadly and gave him a nearly imperceptible shake of his head. Baine nodded slightly. He understood VOl'jin's reasoning. It was the same as Baine's own. VOl'jin needed to protect his people from the wrath of an offended Garrus. A world war. As Baine headed west, toward home and the serenity of the roiling plains of his beloved Mak'gora, he could not decide if Garrus was mad with power or simply mad. Mad or not, the path of the Horde, it took them to a previously hidden land known as Pandaria. They took their conflict with them, causing quite a bit of trouble for Pandaria, whereas Garrus, he stuck to his gut and he pushed forward with his plans of eradicating the Alliance.
Storm the shore and paint this new continent red!
A brand new land to explore, new people and new resources to fuel the war effort. The other members of the Horde, they were being pushed further and further away. Only those that had the strength and will to follow the vision of the war chief, they were allowed to stand with him. This led to events like the Sun Reavers being forced to steal the Divine Bell, which incurred the wrath of the new leader of the Kirintor, Jaina Proudmoore, and the Purge of Dalaran. Events like Anduin stepping up to stop Garrus from using the bell, which in turn had him crushed underneath it, breaking nearly all of his bones in his body. VOl'jin finally having enough, speaking out against Garrus's plans. He got his throat sliced for the effort and needed time to recover. During that time, he figured out his position within the Horde. He would come to the conclusion that he could not stay away. He could not leave the Horde in the hands of Garrus. They were a family, being torn apart from within, so the Darkspear Rebellion is upon us.
It be done. Razor Hill is ours! The war chief probably see the fires all the way from Gromash Horde. VOl'jin, you're alive! It is true then. An open rebellion against the war chief. Dang. We be needing your support. Razor Hill be but an outpost. The walls of Orgrimmar be fortified since the Cataclysm. I must tread carefully. Many of my people are still within Orgrimmar. Lor'themar be ready to strike once he finish with the Isle of Thunder, and the Banshee Queen need no excuse. But they both across the sea, Without your strength, we can't breach the city. I need Tauren arms.
We are preparing. I just need time to ensure the safety of my people. But VOl'jin... Garrosh has turned Orgrimmar into a fortress. You may need to seek out allies beyond the Horde.
Beyond the Horde, meaning the Alliance, of course. And together, we made ready for the siege of Orgrimmar, to kick Garrosh out of the Mantle of Warchief. But Hellscream, he has spent a lot of time gathering troops, weaponry, and power. The very heart of an old god is in his possession. In front of the gates, we find Baine and VOl'jin again. They're taking heavy casualties, trying to bring down the Iron Juggernauts. We're out of siege weapons as well. Thankfully, Thrawn and the Night Elf forces, they have a solution for that problem. Deeper into the fortress, we open up the gates so that the rest of our troops can come in.
Garrosh be concealing a whole hidden base. Where did his lust for power take him?
We will soon find out. He is cornered like a rat in one of these corridors. What should we do next?
Baine, you and your warriors hold this junction. These heroes should forge ahead and flush the war chief out of hiding.
What about you?
People be dying up above. The city is in chaos. I'm gonna finish it. Stop the bloodshed. I'll come back for ya.
Very well.
It's gonna be fine, Baine. We're gonna find Thor. Gonna kill the war chief. Gonna avenge your father.
Earth Mother protect you, VOl'jin.
Dark spear never die.
And neither does Garrosh. Heroes of Azeroth are able to defeat the Warchief, despite him consuming more and more power from the heart of Y'Shaarj. He is not killed. Neither Thrall nor Varian take the killing blow. Instead, he's taken to Pandaria to be put on trial. The position of Warchief is not taken up by Baine Bloodhoof. Instead, it's filled up by the one who led the rebellion.
I speak for the Horde.
Very well. The Horde has committed heinous crimes, VOl'jin. But some among you fought against Garrosh's tyranny. For that, I am willing to end this bloodshed. But know this. If your Horde fails to uphold honor as Garrosh did, we will end you.
Now Garrosh is put in chains as his reign as Warchief is over, but the damage caused between the factions, that still ripples on. After the fight, you can talk with the leaders and hear what they have to say. Sadly, Baine, he only says that we're all in this together, but Thrall, he regrets his choices of appointing Garrosh as Warchief. Prince Anduin is very proud of his father, agrees with the choices made, but Jaina does not. She's still pissed at the Horde and believes that they should have kept on fighting. King Varian wants the Alliance to now be proactive in the future. Never again can there be another, the likes of Hellscream. Onwards to the trial of Garrosh, which took place in Pandaria. Here we have the August Celestials, who are going to be the judge and the jury. Taranzu is going to keep the proceedings going and in order, leaving the role of prosecutor and defender to be filled. That's right, it's going to be a proper court case. Now Thrawn the Whisperwind is appointed to be the accuser. Not the most difficult job, of course, but the defense, that's a different story. The Horde looks at someone that's respected by both sides, who has no love for Garrosh, but was also not going to lie or do any less than his best. They turned towards Baine Bloodhoof. He couldn't believe what they were asking of him. Garrosh slew his father. He didn't want to defend him. He wanted what all of them wanted as well. Garrosh had earned a death 100 times over. "Make them listen," came a voice that had so far been quiet. It was deep, strong despite age, and a sharp thread of pain ran through it. "There's no challenge in flinging a list of atrocities at Garrosh's head," said Saurfang. "The test will be who can make the judge and jury truly listen. To hear you speak for calm consideration, when all know how you suffer. Only you can do that, Baine Bloodhoof." He was not ordered by his warchief to pick up this charge. Instead, VOl'jin told him to follow his heart. Back in Mak'gora, Baine had Cloudsong guide him through a ritual, one that allowed him to contact the spirit of his father. Gently, he was made aware of a presence. Cairne Bloodhoof smiled down upon his son. This was a Cairne that Baine had never known. The mighty bull in his prime, his eyes sharp and keen. He held his rune spear. It was whole again, as was he. Cairne's massive chest rippled with muscle as he lifted the spear in salute. "Father," breathed Baine. "My son," Cairne said, his eyes crinkling in affection. "To walk between your world and mine is difficult, and my time is brief. But I knew I had to come when your heart is so troubled." All the pain that Baine had buried deep inside, that he could not express, could not even permit himself to feel, lest it interfere with his duties to the Tauren people that he led, came pouring out like a flash flood. "Father, Garrosh killed you. He denied you the right to die with honor. He stood by while the Grimtotem and I fought like beasts in a pit, while he awaited the victor. He violated the land, lied to his own people, and fed more." Tears ran down Baine's muzzle. Tears of grief and anger, and for a moment he could not speak. The twin emotions choked him. "And now you've been asked to defend him," replied Cairne, "when all you wish is to put your hoof on his throat." Baine nodded. "Yes, you spoke out against him before anyone else had the courage. Father, should I have done so? Could I have stopped him? Is all the blood that he spilled upon my hands too?" He was surprised by the question, but the words came out of their own volition. Cairne smiled gently. "The past is the past, my son, borne away like blossoms in the wind. Garrosh's choices are his alone, as is the responsibility for his actions. Always you follow your heart, and always you have made me proud." And at that moment, Baine knew the answer Cairne was about to give him. "You think I should do this thing?" he whispered. "Defend Garrosh Hellscream. What I think does not matter. You must do what you feel is right, as you have ever done. What was right for me at that time was to challenge Garrosh. What was right for you at other times was to support him as leader of the Horde. Varian should have let Goel slay him," growled Baine. "But he did not, and so we are here," said the young old bull placidly. "Answer this, and you will know what to do. If it grieves you that I was slain by treachery, can you then do anything but strive for perfect truth and integrity, even, perhaps especially, when it does not come easily? Can you not do your utmost to honor this role that has been given you? Dear son of my blood and my heart, I believe you knew the answer before ever you came." Baine did, but the knowing pained him. "I will take up this burden," he murmured, "and I will defend Garrosh to the best of my ability. You could do no less and still be you. You will be glad of it when it's all over." No, he said, lifting his hands as protest, when Baine tried to speak. "I cannot tell you what the outcome will be, but I promise your heart will be at peace." Cairne's image began to fade. Baine realized this, stricken that he had wasted his precious opportunity, complaining like a mere youngling when his father... "No!" he cried, standing, his voice cracking with emotion. "Father, please, do not go. Not yet. Please, not just yet." There were so many things Baine wanted to say. How terrible much he missed Cairne. How hard he strove to honor his father's memory. That these few moments meant the world to him. Too late. He reached out imploringly, but his father walked in the shadow of life, not the son of it, and Baine's grasping hands closed only on empty air. Cairne's eyes grew sad, and he too reached out, only to vanish in the next breath. Baine did not find the answer that he sought, but he did get the answer that he needed. He would take up the charge of defending Garrosh Hellscream, but the trial and what follows next, that's a story we'll save for next week, as then we'll finish up the story of Baine Bloodhoof. So for now, thank you very much for watching, everyone. Subscribe if you like my videos, leave a like if you enjoyed this one, and until next time, guys, see ya!